I think it's the modern tradition of selfies being taken outside with the two excellencies. So perhaps we could ask everyone if you'd like to be seated. It seems that the presidents are very popular out there, and they're being mobbed by well-wishers and people who would like to take pictures. I can see the excitement there through the door. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you can then stand. Please join me in welcoming the two presidents. Thank you very much. His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, our host today, His Excellency, President Alassane Ouattara, the guest, Minister Soleimani Diarasuba, ministers from Côte d'Ivoire and from South Africa, ambassadors from Côte d'Ivoire and South Africa, deputy ministers, business leaders and chief executive officers, ladies and gentlemen, bonjour, dumelang, good afternoon, assalamu alaikum, akwaba. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire Business Forum 2022. In particular, I would like to convey a special word of appreciation to my colleague and friend, Minister Soleimani Diarasuba. Since earlier this morning, Excellencies, our two business communities have been meeting. They've been getting to know each other's businesses, they've been sharing ideas, they've been exchanging business cards, And they've also been meeting in 5 investor roundtables. The Business Forum's Excellencies has been put together because both heads of state have made it clear to the members of cabinet that they want to place the economic relations at the heart of the special relationship being forged between the 2 countries and the 2 presidents. We are bringing together 2 parts of the African continent, Southern and West Africa, and 2 nations with ancient civilizations from the Kong and Abron kingdoms, the Baholi and Agni kingdoms of West Africa, to the kingdom of Mapungubwe in Southern Africa. Your Excellencies, Africa today has 17% of the world's population, yet only 3% of global GDP, and as a continent we produce less than 1% of global steel output and global car making. All our work is defined by the overriding objective to drive industrialization of our economies and of the African continent so that we create jobs here and change the bitter legacy of colonialism. Today, the 2 governments entered into an MOU on economic cooperation. We will set up a joint trade and investment committee. We have identified 6 areas of focus: industrial cooperation, trade cooperation, small and medium enterprise development, industrial and infrastructure development, technical cooperation, and the facilitation of investment. We've looked at a number of different ways of working together. Sectors have been identified. Special economic zones have been highlighted. Infrastructure for trade facilitation has been lifted out. The promotion of the African content in the AFC FTA, that's the African Continental Free Trade Area, rules of origin have been agreed. And we're also looking at new industries, the green economy, digitization and e-commerce. Many products have been identified for increased trade. Products important to South Africa, products important to Côte d'Ivoire. And it's been now, the focus has been on the private sector, on getting things moving. So with that in mind, it's really my pleasure to say, Excellencies, we would like you to have an opportunity to hear from the private sector. And so we are going to invite 1 representative from South Africa, and we are going to invite, through my colleague, I'm going to ask Minister Suleimani Dierasuba to come up in a moment after the South African report has been given, so that he may introduce the business representative from Côte d'Ivoire. What they will tell us is the areas that they've worked on. But in our own MOU, looking at the trade relations between the countries, we have looked at many products from pharmaceutical to petroleum oil to palm oil and palm oil cakes, cashew nuts, fruit, skin creams, cocoa and cocoa paste, frozen fish, automobiles, machinery, polypropylene, televisions, paper, rubber, many different areas where we want to increase trade. So it's really my pleasure now to invite Dr. Ramatsimela Masango, who is the chairperson of ARIO from the South African private sector, to come forward and to briefly share with the Excellencies and with the members of Cabinet the proceedings that took place this morning, and to share also our thinking about the future. Please, can you all welcome Dr. Masango.
Your Excellencies, President Cyril Ramaphosa of the Republic of South Africa, President Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire, honorable ministers and ambassadors from both South Africa and Côte d'Ivoire, leaders in business and captains of industries from both South Africa and Côte d'Ivoire, distinguished guests and colleagues, good afternoon to you all. South Africa Cote d'Ivoire Business Forum took place earlier today, and on the margins of the state visit, it brought together over 250 business executives and captains of industry from the two countries. The forum was held under the theme, Accelerating Trade and Investment between South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire through Strengthened Partnerships. The forum appreciated the political goodwill between the two countries and the desire to mutually beneficial cooperation and facilitation of trade and investment for the mutual benefit of both countries. The forum took note of the commitment of our two governments to enhance trade and investment relations and expressed its unequivocal support to translate the outcomes of this forum into concrete actions. The forum noted the importance of trade and investment as a tool for international engagements and lauded cordial and friendly diplomatic relations that South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire enjoy in this regard. The forum called upon governments of the two countries to work seamlessly to improve the environment for doing business within and between the countries. And this can be done by addressing tariff and non-tariff barriers that continue to impede higher levels of trade between the two countries, and also by facilitating support, more frequent business-to-business interactions, and networking as a means to build confidence, forge strategic partnerships, and the clear way for deal-making. In this regard, the forum called for concerted effort by all social partners to increase the volume of trade and levels of investment during the next 12 to 18 months in order to create and sustain jobs, improve livelihoods of citizens of both countries, and particularly for women and the youth, and to secure inclusive growth. There is indeed an appreciation of the significance of our two economies in terms of the continent, given the size and the contribution of the two countries. What was evident during the discussions this morning is the alignment between the identified priority sector clusters as expressed in the value chain discussions that took place earlier today. More specifically, the automotive sector and the natural rubber value chains, clothing and textile sectors, the ICT sector, infrastructure, agro-industries, and more importantly, financing. These are the key priority clusters where there is alignment between the two countries, and there is indeed a need to urgently focus and address these priorities. And in order to realize these priorities, we must address the barriers to trade and the barriers to investment. And we need to step up our efforts towards deepening and widening industrial base and capacities. This can be achieved through supporting the export of our shared industrial and service capabilities and the continued organic growth of our African private sector companies. There is certainly a need to take up opportunities and act, and more importantly, to act swiftly. There is an urgent need to translate these outcomes into actions so that business can actually act, and I think business is indeed ready. My colleague from Cote d'Ivoire, Mr. Faman Toure, will elaborate on further perspectives. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matsamela, for that succinct report. I'm going to call on my colleague, Minister Suleimani Diarasuba, to come and officially introduce the business representative from Côte d'Ivoire. My colleague, you are invited.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of South Africa, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, ladies and gentlemen of South African government, the members of Ivorian government, ladies and gentlemen, business leaders. I would like only to invite the Chief of Delegation of the Ivorian private sector, Mr. Fama Touré, to deliver his message. Thank you.
Merci.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République sud-africaine, Monsieur Cyril Ramaphosa, Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République de Côte d'Ivoire, Monsieur Alassane Ouattara, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres de la République de Côte d'Ivoire et de la République sud-africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs les présidents directeurs généraux des entreprises ivoiriennes et sud-africaines, et nous avons travaillé de concert, cela a été indiqué tout à l'heure, et c'est une partie des interventions qui a été présentée tout à l'heure par Docteur. Donc je viens à la suite de Docteur pour justement présenter le travail que nous avons fait ce matin. À cet égard, le Forum a appelé les partenaires sociaux à fournir des efforts concertés dans le but d'accroître le volume des échanges et le niveau des investissements au cours des 12 à 18 prochains et partant, créer et maintenir des emplois, améliorer les moyens de subsistance des citoyens des deux pays, notamment les femmes et les jeunes, et assurer une croissance inclusive. Le Forum s'est engagé à travailler de concert au développement et à la mise en œuvre d'un programme de travail conjoint ambitieux de 24 mois visant à accroître le commerce bilatéral entre les deux pays, augmenter substantiellement le niveau des investissements bilatéraux en se concentrant notamment sur les chaînes de valeur industrielles, convenues d'un commun accord, agriculture et agro-industrie, tels que le cacao, la noix de cajou, le coton, le caoutchouc naturel et bien d'autres domaines à explorer, tels que l'automobile et les projets d'infrastructures de grande envergure, aéroports, énergie, TIC, ports, chemins de fer, eau et assainissement, tourisme et industrie créative. Faciliter la création de co-entreprises et de partenariats stratégiques entre les entreprises sud-africaines et ivoiriennes aux fins de rendre accessibles leurs marchés communautaires économiques régionaux existants, COMESA et CEDEAO, et d'ouvrir de nouveaux marchés à travers le continent dans le cadre de l'accord de libre-échange continental africain. Constituer un groupe de travail conjoint Afrique du Sud, Côte d'Ivoire, qui, en étroite collaboration avec les deux gouvernements, œuvre à éliminer les obstacles qui entravent l'accession à des niveaux plus élevés de commerce et d'investissement entre les deux pays, mobiliser les ressources requises pour l'accélération du développement et de la mise en œuvre de projets bancaires. Les capitaines d'industrie ont apprécié l'importance du forum en tant que plateforme d'échange de vues et d'idées portant sur la collaboration en vue d'exploiter les nombreuses opportunités à saisir dans les deux pays. Le forum a salué la signature de 2 protocoles d'accord portant sur la coopération économique entre le développement du commerce de l'Industrie et de la Concurrence de la République d'Afrique du Sud, d'une part, et le ministère du Commerce, de l'Industrie et de la Promotion des PME, la République de Côte d'Ivoire, d'autre part. Le Forum salue et s'inspire également des accords signés entre le ministère du Commerce, de l'Industrie et des PME de Côte d'Ivoire et l'Association africaine des constructeurs d'automobiles, ainsi que l'accord entre Massé Technologies, Sodexam et Axcol. Ces accords cadres contribueront à établir une base solide visant à approfondir la collaboration multisectorielle partant de la collaboration entre gouvernements à la collaboration publique-privée, sans oublier la collaboration entre entreprises. Merci, Monsieur le ministre, j'en ai terminé.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. We now come to the final and culminating segment of this business forum. We've heard from the business community. They've conveyed the richness of their discussion through these two reports. We'll now hear from the two heads of state. Both presidents have measured the impact of that special relationship that I spoke of earlier on the extent to which we are able to create jobs and increase and expand the GDP of both countries. They have provided the vision and the framework within which the two business communities will be able to partner. Last year, His Excellency, President Ramaphosa, led a delegation of business people to Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire as part of his efforts to drive greater trade and investment between African countries. It is part of what President Ramaphosa has described as the reimagined industrial strategy that is founded on deeper industrialization and greater levels of trade within the continent. Today's business forum lays the platform for that vision to be realized in the work between our two countries. I now invite President Ramaphosa to address you, and I ask you to join me in welcoming His Excellency, the President. President Ramaphosa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. Your Excellency, President Ouattara, Your Excellencies, our ambassadors, representing our two wonderful countries on both sides, Minister Ibrahim Patel, Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, and Minister Dia Rasolba. I was afraid I wouldn't get it right. Honorable ministers on both sides, as well as deputy ministers, business and industry leaders assembled here from both South Africa and Côte d'Ivoire, and representatives of business organizations, distinguished guests and friends, fellow Ivorians and fellow South Africans. I greet you all in my own name and President Ouattara's name. It's wonderful to see a galaxy of business leaders and business people like you are all here. I'm only troubled by one thing. You look very sad. What has happened? Have you lost money during this conference? This gathering follows very closely on the Ivorian and South African Economic Forum that took place in Abidjan in December last year. We had a most wonderful tour and visit to Côte d'Ivoire, and I was even made chief of Abidjan. So I know a number of you always tell me that they are from royal houses. I have one of my ministers here who always reminds me, I'm royalty. But I am the real royalty from Abidjan. Your Excellency, President Ouattara, the fact that I was accompanied on my first visit to Côte d'Ivoire by a South African business delegation, which numbered about 170 people, is an indication of how important commercial ties are to the relationship between our two countries. Commercial in the sense of investment, in the sense of trade, in the sense of commerce. This is, in my view, what comes after the strong political relationship between us, between our two countries, a relationship that is also cemented, that is held by a special glue of the relationship I have as President of South Africa with President Ouattara, President of Côte d'Ivoire. From the very first time we really got to know each other, we'd been meeting in various forums, but when we really got to engage at close range during my visit to Côte d'Ivoire, we started calling ourselves friends. And we have become friends, and very good friends for that matter. And today, we are honored to receive you, your official delegation, and around 60 business people from Côte d'Ivoire. This, for us, means that Côte d'Ivoire, your government, yourself, and the business people of Côte d'Ivoire, it's trade and investment relations between our two countries. It is also a strong demonstration of our shared commitment to the success of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It is now just over 18 months since the AFCFTA came into force, and it is up to us as African countries, as African leaders, African business people, to ensure that we seize the opportunities that this presents to our continent and its people. We congratulate Côte d'Ivoire for being selected to host the next Intra-Africa Trade Fair in Abidjan in 2023. I have no doubt there will be good attendance, and in fact, I know there will be good attendance by South African business, which has demonstrated a keen interest in greater levels of intra-Africa trade and investment. So we will be there in Côte d'Ivoire at the trade fair. Every trade mission, and every trade fair, and every business forum, such as this one that we are attending here, is another added building block towards greater economic integration on our continent in its various 5 regions. As we hold these trade fairs and as we hold these business forums, we are moving closer and closer to each other at an economic level, at a trade type of forum. And that is why I did want to see that we bring together, or with us, a business delegation. And let me tell you, the business delegation we took to Côte d'Ivoire in December was the biggest business delegation that we have ever taken anywhere. So it just shows President Ouattara, just shows the special way in which even South African business look forward to doing business with business people in Côte d'Ivoire. I want to thank the members of the South African business community who have joined us here today. You appreciate, as we do, the importance of Côte d'Ivoire as one of the continent's most dynamic and promising economies. I mean, that economy is growing at about 7%, and President Ouattara tells me that we're probably going to hit 8%. There aren't many economies on our continent that are hitting such big numbers of growth. So I congratulate Côte d'Ivoire, and that means that there are great opportunities in the Ivorian market, and that is what you as South African business people, you've got to grasp. In 2021, South Africa's exports to Côte d'Ivoire amounted to about 1.63 billion rand. This is less than 1% of our total exports to the rest of the world. So I see great opportunity to improve this, to build on this, and to strengthen our economic ties. Opportunities exist for export of products from our food value chains, such as sugar, such as wines, and there are quite a number of people in Côte d'Ivoire who are Muslims who don't drink alcohol, but there are many others who I believe do drink wines. So let's capitalize on that. So, you know, whenever we have state visits, we want to showcase what do we give the head of state. And we postulated, should we give President Ouattara wine? And they said, no, he doesn't drink, don't even try. So we didn't give President Ouattara wine, but if any one of you want some wine from us, you can have it. So there are many opportunities. There are also opportunities for the export of machinery, consumer goods, medical products, motor vehicles in the automotive sector, as it was mentioned earlier. That is another great opportunity. Herbicides and insecticides, televisions, and products such as paper. I have no doubt that many business people will see additional opportunities that may be hidden somewhere. And as business people, you will always find a creative way of creating new markets, of bringing to market new products. While the value of South African imports from Côte d'Ivoire has doubled over the last 5 years, it has started from a relatively low base. We see great potential to growth here. And as President Ouattara and I were entering now, we saw products from Côte d'Ivoire, ladies displaying the various agricultural products from Côte d'Ivoire, from cashew nuts and so forth. And I didn't know that you could extract vinegar from cashew nuts. So now the South African market will soon have vinegar from cashew nuts. So it is here, and we are going to want to buy it in large numbers because we want to do trade with Côte d'Ivoire. This is cakes that are used widely in the South African industry. There is also potential to import, as I said, cashew nuts, a variety of fresh fruit, skin creams, cocoa and cocoa paste and rubber. And I was really applauding Côte d'Ivoire for being the largest producer in the world and on our continent of a number of agricultural products. And that puts Côte d'Ivoire at a fairly high level on our economic screen. We can also combine our strength to build new industries. Côte d'Ivoire and South Africa can pioneer high-quality African chocolate making. We can do that. Now, just picture this. Just picture this. We on the African continent, with Côte d'Ivoire being the biggest producer of cocoa, we have Switzerland being the biggest or the largest producer of chocolate. Why don't we pull the carpet from underneath their feet and have it done here? Now, I was whispering to President Ouattara during our tete-a-tete that, one of the best things that we could do is to set up, as I said, chocolate-making factories. Now, my ministers are laughing themselves to death because each time they do something wonderful, I promise them chocolate. So, President Ouattara, they always want to know, where will the chocolate come from? Is it going to come from Ghana or Côte d'Ivoire? Now, today I want to say it'll come from Côte d'Ivoire. So the linkages between our two economies can be great because we could bring together your cocoa, our sugar, milk from within the continent, and the production of know-how from both countries. But I also want to say that whilst we have a great desire, and we do make chocolate, but we have a great desire to perfect the making of chocolate that is made out of cocoa from Côte d'Ivoire. But we also will be saying we want that factory, that process to be made, to be set up in Côte d'Ivoire itself, so that Côte d'Ivoire must have the expertise. We can use our marketing expertise to brand these chocolates. Africa should be the center of global chocolate production and distribution. There's no reason why we cannot. And this is a wonderful dream to aspire to because we produce the raw material, we can also produce the perfect finished product, even much better than they can ever do in Switzerland. Now, South Africa's investment portfolio in Côte d'Ivoire is expanding and increasing. By way of example, in 2021, the Development Bank of Southern Africa increased its investments in Côte d'Ivoire from 2.17 billion rand to 3 billion rand. Two big South African banks, Rand Merchant Bank and Nedbank, are already financing a number of infrastructure developments in Côte d'Ivoire. MTN's footprint in Côte d'Ivoire continues to grow. We were pleased to be at the launch of MTN's new headquarters in Abidjan during last year's state visit. So I'm glad it's expanding. MultiChoice, Sanlam, and Investec are among the growing number of South African companies that are expanding their businesses in Côte d'Ivoire. Last month, South Africa's Department of Trade, Industry and Competition undertook an investment technical visit to Côte d'Ivoire with a group of black industrialists. Also last month, business leaders from South Africa attended the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan. Now we are pleased South African wines are also finding favor in Côte d'Ivoire, as I said. No more to be said about that. Westgrow, the Western Cape's Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, was in Abidjan in April on an export promotion mission. President Ouattara, I'm very pleased that you'll be going to the Western Cape and you'll be undertaking a special visit to a special place in the Western Cape. So I'm really pleased and I'm envious. I wish I could have been going with you, but I'm held back by many other things. Just as there is still a great deal of work to be done to advance bilateral trade growth in terms of value, volume, and composition, we need to work harder to facilitate mutual bilateral investment, particularly in infrastructure, as well as manufacturing. The Memorandum of Understanding on Economic Cooperation that was signed this morning by our respective trade and industry ministers is a positive step towards strengthening our economic relationship. I understand that both our ministers will be meeting in Ghana next week on the African Continental Free Trade Area, and that they are both committed to securing a high level of African content in automobiles, in clothing, as well as in textile products. South Africa can use Ivorian cotton in our spinning mills or buy Ivorian textiles to make clothing here. Like Côte d'Ivoire, South Africa has identified agriculture. We've also identified infrastructure, mining, energy, transport and logistics, and manufacturing as some of the key growth areas that will aid our economic recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. We are currently implementing a far-reaching program of economic reforms in a number of areas of our economy, and this will catalyze greater investment in the various economies. The opportunities for both private and public investment in our respective countries are quite immense. Throughout our interactions, we must promote the principles of mutual benefit as well as empowerment, particularly empowerment for the women of our two countries, because they are the ones who will carry this continent forward in every way. We must also focus on the young people of our continent. The young people of our continent are the best future that we have. They are the ones who will also ensure that we have a better future as a continent. Focusing on industrialization and using African products as well as raw materials in our industrialization process is going to be very important. We must invest more in our people, particularly in the various regions of our countries that are depressed and that have not seen great development. The sustainability of our growth depends on our success in empowering the majority of our population to participate in the economy, and as I said, our women as well as young people. Now, from this business forum, I look forward to receiving reports of real commercial deals between our private companies, between our state-owned enterprises, and between our development finance institutions. And I look forward to a new era of trade and commerce and investment between South Africa and Côte d'Ivoire. And I think we've reached a stage in the history of our continent where the future really looks bright. And all we have to do is to grasp that future and make it happen. And this is the time that we should do so. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, for that address. Mr. President, you mentioned the matter of wines. I must advise that we are now producing, here in South Africa, non-alcoholic wines. And we produce non-alcoholic beer. And we produce a range of sparkling fruit juices and apple juice, orange juice, grape juice, berry juice, cherry juice, guava juice, and many, many other juices. So no Ivorian needs to be thirsty. I now invite Minister Suleiman Dierasuba to come to the stage for my colleague to join me, and for Minister Diarasuba to officially introduce President Ouattara to the representatives of the business community assembled here in the Business Forum. Colleague, please.
Your Excellencies, Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, Your Excellencies, President Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, Senior Minister of State of Côte d'Ivoire and South Africa, Honorable Minister of Ivorian Government and South African Government, Minister Ibrahim Patel, my dear friend and colleague, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Côte d'Ivoire to South Africa, Head of Delegation of the Ivorian and South African private sector, ladies and gentlemen, business leader, dear friend of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to take the floor today at this economic forum, which aims to promote investment opportunities offered by Côte d'Ivoire and South Africa, and to create the condition of strengthening business partnership between the private and public sectors. Indeed, this meeting is being held less than a year after the memorable visit by His Excellency, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, to Côte d'Ivoire from December the 1st to 3rd, 2021. This forum, which is a part of the presidential visit of His Excellency, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, shows the excellent economic and trade relation that exists between our two countries. Trade value is increasing with an overall volume of goods exchange of more than $3 billion from 2017 to 2021. Your Excellencies, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, this forum, which records the participation of more than 70 Ivorian businessmen in priority sector, offers a great opportunity to strengthen the relation of brotherhood and the economic cooperation between our two countries, and to conclude new fruitful economic and commercial partnership. This gives us the opportunity to greet Mr. Fama Touré, President of Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Côte d'Ivoire, Head of Delegation of the Ivorian private sector, and all the economic stakeholders present at this forum. Please applaud them. Thank you. This forum has allowed to continue the discussion initiated last December in Abidjan in order to reach the creation of Ivorian South African joint venture to conquer different markets on Africa continent. Before I solemnly invite His Excellency Mr. Years, significant investments have been made for the development of social and economic infrastructure, such as road, airport, electricity, water, urban transport, ICT, and more investment in human capital and continuous improvement of the business environment. This has resulted in the increase in per capita income from $1,070 in 2010 to $2,134 in 2020, according to the World Bank. the reduction in the poverty rate from 50% in 2011 to 39% in 2020. The emergence of a middle class estimated at 30%, and Côte d'Ivoire's ranking in the top 10 reform country in the world of the World Bank's Doing Business in 2014, 2015, 2017, and 2019. Applaud Côte d'Ivoire, please, for this performance. Moreover, in his vision, the President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire has always attached importance to the private sector, the lever of economic growth. In this regard, in his social project of Côte d'Ivoire Solidaire 2030, he plans the structural transformation of the economy through industrialization. Therefore, this forum is an opportunity for Ivorian and South African businessmen to establish win-win partnership. Excellencies, this business forum has resulted in engaging conclusion of the stakeholder for business development in strategic sector of our two countries. Given the dynamism of our respective private sector, I have no doubt about the implementation of the recommendation for the firm developed during the 5 roundtable. We can already reassure you that our ministry, and as well as the ministries involved in the implementation of this recommendation, will give you the full support as this initiative aims to create add value and job for the youth and women. Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, President Alassane Ouattara, with your authorization, with your permission, with respect and humility, I would like to invite Your Excellency to deliver your important message to Ivorian and South African businessmen in order to use them to invest more in the productive sector of our country. Your Excellency, Mr. President Alassane Ouattara, please, here is the floor for your address to the forum. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank Suleiman Jarasuba for his very kind remarks, and also congratulate Minister Patel. And I'd like to say how happy I am to be in front of so many business brothers and sisters from South Africa and Côte d'Ivoire. President Ramaphosa, my dear brother, let me say again that it's a great pleasure for me to be in South Africa at your invitation. And I'd like to reiterate my gratitude to you, to the government and people of this great country for the warm welcome to my delegation and myself. I indicated this morning that this is not my first trip to South Africa, and we were really very lucky that Madiba, when he left Robben Island, Côte d'Ivoire was one of the countries he visited first. I think about 3 countries that he visited, and Côte d'Ivoire was among them. And I was, our first president was about 90 years old at that time, and I had the privilege to accompany Madiba from Abidjan to Yamoussoukro for his meeting with President Ouattara, and what an impressive person. So really it's a privilege for me to be in Madiba's country. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I visited Côte d'Ivoire, visited South Africa in, I think the archives will show, in February 1995, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I was appointed as Deputy Managing Director of the IMF in July 1994, and I wanted my first trip to be in South Africa. And I think that trip took place in February 1995, if my recollection is correct. And I had another great opportunity to meet President Mandela on that occasion. And so this is to tell you that the ties between our two great leaders and our two countries are not of today. And Côte d'Ivoire, in fact, had diplomatic relations with South Africa, I think in 1992. And this was not appreciated by many. But my president was of the view that we needed to start working for the abolition of apartheid and to be prepared to welcome the new South Africa at the African Union. And this is what we did. So, Mr. President, congratulations to all of you, to your predecessors, for what you have been doing for your country, and also for the attachment to democracy, to human rights, and clearly to progress for all South Africans. I have always admired this great country. I visited South Africa on several occasions during the crisis that we had in our country, and the mediator was the South African president, and we visited Pretoria on about half a dozen times, and this is the first time I have a privilege to have an official visit, a state visit here, so I'm full of pride, and I want to thank you sincerely. Thank you for giving me this honor, and also for the friendship, as you said, we have developed since we have been able to know each other closer, and also to share views about our countries, about the continent, and in international issues. Of course, this business forum, I'm sure everything has been said better than I would be able to tell you, because unfortunately, I'm a banker and a financier, and I was really raised to be careful about business people. But especially as a central banker. But I tried to modernize our central bank. And they applauded, otherwise they'll see when we get home. So really, this forum is a great opportunity for the business community of both countries to meet, and really for South African and Ivorian companies to build a partnership for the private sector to discuss also with members of the two governments. To congratulations to Minister Patel and Minister Jarasuba. And I think the conclusion of your forum, as discussed and presented by President Ramaphosa, is very clear. that we have to be more determined, to have to do more. We have to make a voluntary choice to push our private sector to do more, to invest more and to produce more, so we cannot be dependent on imports and other countries outside of the continent. And I think we have to recognize that the African Free Trade Organization is a major achievement. And I'm happy to know that, to witness that with the trade between our two countries have increased substantially to about $500 million over the past 6 months. But this is insufficient given the potential that our two countries offer to each other. So we count on you business sectors to do more, to invest more, to trade more, and to travel more to South Africa and Côte d'Ivoire. So I agree fully with your proposal, Mr. Ramaphosa, President Ramaphosa, that we need to really increase our cooperation and build partnership between our two countries. In saying that, of course, since my election, I consider that I was, or I should be, the first salesman of Côte d'Ivoire. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to tell you why you should go to Côte d'Ivoire, why you should invest when you arrive in Côte d'Ivoire. I think, firstly, Côte d'Ivoire is a fairly important country economically. GDP is not, of course, is only the 10th of the continent, but it represents 40% of the GDP of the 8 countries of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, which has this union has a single currency, of which I was the governor for a few years before going to the IMF. And also Côte d'Ivoire is the leading producer of cocoa, as President Ramaphosa indicated now. And obviously, he has been so eloquent. I don't need to say more about the possibilities and the opportunities we can develop in really processing cocoa in Côte d'Ivoire and in South Africa. We produce 2.5 million tons of the 4 million tons of cocoa in the world. So clearly, and from what I have heard, although I should not say this because it could drive prices down because of the supply considerations, because of good rains, our production could even go beyond 2.5 million tons in the next year. And Côte d'Ivoire is also the world leading producer of cashew nuts. And so, President, thank you for the publicity, for people to know that we can even make vinegar from cashew nuts. And of course, Côte d'Ivoire is an agricultural-based country, and we have, we're leading African producer of various products like palm oil, rubber, banana, pineapple, etc. And recently, although we produce a bit of oil and gas, not much, but in 2021, a major oil and gas discovery was made by the Italian company, Eni. So the reserves are now 10 times more than the current reserves we have. So in a couple of years, Côte d'Ivoire is going to be a fairly large or medium producer of gas and oil. So this is good news, of course, and they should help in improving the production of energy Second, Côte d'Ivoire has one of the most dynamic economies in the world. I indicated that from 2012 till 2019, 2012 is really when I took office, because, as you know, the election took place in 2010, but we were really not able to be in office until April or May 2011 because of a civil war. So it's really the full economic team was in place only from 2012. And from 2012 until 2019, we had an annual growth rate of about 8% per annum. And in 2020, despite COVID, we had a growth rate of 2% growth, which is quite rare, since most countries in the world were in recession. And last year, the growth rate was in 7.5%. And in the medium term, as President Ramaphosa said, our expectation is that we should continue to have an annual growth rate between 7 and 8% over the medium term. And I'd like to also add that we have a currency which is pegged to the euro. Some people think this is not a good thing, but as a central banker, I've always said that this was a good thing, because you recall that in 4 years ago, a euro was equal to $1.35, and yesterday the euro was equal to $1. So there was a depreciation of 35%. So without really doing anything, we have this possibility of depreciation where our economy needs to grow faster. So clearly, we accommodate our monetary policy with this fixed exchange rate. And for the past, I think, 50 years, or 60 years, I should say, this system has worked very well for us, such that the inflation rate, for example, for the past 12 years, has been about 2% per annum. And even this year, despite COVID, the energy crisis, the problem of Ukraine, and so forth, we expect only an inflation rate of about 5%. So I say, as a banker, that the fixed exchange rate with a currency which represents the largest part of your trade is not a bad thing, because it allows you to concentrate on structural issues in the economy. So Côte d'Ivoire has 2/3 of its trade with Europe, but what we'd like, and we have about 15% of our trade with the other African countries, but of course what we'd like is to reverse these ratios, and South Africa, I'm sure, is a major partner which can allow us to move in that direction. So the peg currency has been a good thing for us, because our deficit, our inflation rate has been low, but it's been low also because the budget deficit has been quite contained to about 3% per annum, because we felt that during that time when we had a strong euro, we needed, inflation was contained, and we had to put the emphasis on infrastructure investment with the private sector, especially external private financing, and put the emphasis on social expenditure, especially on health and education. And this has led to the reduction of poverty that Jarasuba mentioned a few moments ago. So clearly, the macroeconomic framework is something quite important. And I can say that I congratulate the ministers who are here, who are all in the economic sector. It's thanks to them that we have such a good economic performance. So bravo to you. And thirdly, I'd like to say that we have a very attractive investment code and a business-friendly environment. I'm sure that you discovered that yourself when you visited Côte d'Ivoire. And after, by only 1/4, we expect 3/4 of the financing to come from the private sector, because we think that the private sector should be the engine of growth, particularly growth with low inflation. And in that, we would like to really put the emphasis on promoting public-private partnerships and to accelerate the structural transformation of our economy, particularly in priority sectors, as I said, like cocoa, cashew nuts, because this is what will allow creation of jobs for women and children. And we have even set up special zones, industrial zones, to try to encourage that. Energy, of course, can be a major problem, and there I can say that we have invested quite a lot into the energy sector. Initially, we had a very big deficit, but we were able to restructure the debt, and with large investments from the private sector, particularly with the support of IFC, Côte d'Ivoire has more than doubled its energy production. And as of now, we export energy to nearly all the neighboring countries, to Ghana, to Benin, to Togo, to Burkina, to Guinea, to Liberia, to Burkina, and 7 or 8 countries we export energy, and our plan is that in the next 4 or 5 years, energy exports to neighboring countries will be a major export resource, export earning for Côte d'Ivoire after cocoa and also mining. And there we welcome the South African investors again. And I'd like to stress my desire for the South African companies to continue to come to invest in infrastructure, because you have such a great experience in that sector, and in tourism also. These are sectors where we want to rely on you and give you preference in really bidding, because we think this would be very good. And in doing that, we want you to be in partnership with Ivorian nationals, because there we think that not enough is being done by the Ivorian private sector. Well, Mr. President, I've talked too much. I'd like to stop here and really renew my thanks to you. To say briefly that really I'm convinced that our 2 countries are full of opportunities. And I think this has been really witnessed. We have witnessed this over the past few months, when we have started to have closer diplomatic relationships. And we think that with the private sector, we really invite you to do like President Ramaphosa and myself, and develop a close friendship and trust in our 2 countries, in working in our countries, and we will make sure that not only that you are treated fairly, but that we give you preference in our choices if possible. So we believe in South African companies. So we invite you to come to Côte d'Ivoire. And we think if you do so, Côte d'Ivoire enterprises will come also to South Africa, and I'm sure that this will be a win-win proposal. And so I'd like to conclude this speech to say how really great this country is. And if I may say to you, my friend Cyril, how lucky the South Africans are to have you as their president. Thank you. This is not, I'd like to say this is not a problem of lack of humility, but you know, I was director of the African department from '84 to '88. I visited all the African countries, and when I was at the IMF as deputy managing director, I used to supervise 120 countries, not only in Africa. In China, I went to China on several occasions, Thailand, Venezuela, all these countries, of course, to Europe, Switzerland, Belgium, to Eastern countries. So I've met a lot of head of states, and may God bless you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, President Ouattara. President Ouattara, you mentioned chocolates derived from cocoa and cashew nuts. I looked up what happens when you combine the two. And this is what I found on the internet to the question, are chocolate-covered cashews healthy or not? And the answer is, and I'm going to quote, it says, packed with flavonoids, it's been shown to help improve vascular function and help prevent inflammation in the body. When you put cashews, no, there's more to come. When you put cashews and dark chocolate together, the result is a win-win situation. For a low sodium, low cholesterol treat, it doesn't get any better than dark chocolate cashews. End of quote. So I hope the Ivorian delegation has brought lots of chocolates and lots of cashews with them, because there's a hungry market here. The two presidents will take leave in a moment. Minister Diarasuba and I will provide their excellencies with more detailed reports on the discussions that took place this morning by the private sector. After the two excellencies have left, we will witness two agreements that will be signed involving the private sector, so that I ask that you remain with us after we take leave of the two heads of state. The first agreement will cover a partnership between the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers, who are based in South Africa, and the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and SMMEs from Côte d'Ivoire. And that partnership will solidify that relationship in component manufacturing. The second agreement sets up a joint venture between two companies that will enable the assembly of firefighting trucks and ambulances and other related products in Côte d'Ivoire. That signing, as I indicated, will happen as soon as the two presidents leave. I want to express our appreciation to Minister Pando and Minister Kamara for facilitating the diplomatic arrangements that made this business forum possible. now to turn to the two visionaries. President Ouattara, thank you for gracing us at the Business Forum and for your decision to bring such a large and impressive business delegation to South Africa. We hope they visit frequently now that we have direct flights between the two countries, so that they give effect to what President Ouattara set out as the goal of this visit. President Ramaphosa, thank you for the leadership you have given on matters relating to the African continent. During President Ramaphosa's period as chairperson of the African Union, the African Continental Free Trade Area moved from legal conception phase, which was concluded then, and His Excellency launched the start of the implementation phase. Excellencies, I must let you in on a departmental secret. We initially invited 50 representatives from the business community of each country to this business forum. But the high demand for more industrialists and entrepreneurs to be here meant that we were oversubscribed. And by last night, we were still expanding the catering arrangements and the seating so that we can get everybody here that absolutely insisted that they needed to be here. There's a pent-up energy ready to be released, and which Your Excellencies, the symbolism of your presence today will unleash. Ladies and gentlemen, I now ask that you rise as we take leave of President Ramaphosa and our guest, President Ouattara. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for your time with us, and we will now take it forward from here. Thank you very much.